Marion.
Well, hello,
Good
sweet. What's his name?
evening. Good evening, and welcome to the Came to Believe group speaker meeting. We open our meeting
Dalton.
with
Hey,
a moment of
Dalton.
silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God,
Grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
my name is Lawrence Gehring, and I'm an alcoholic. And my sobriety date is March the 6th of 2019. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. We are glad you are all here, especially newcomers. In keeping with our singleness of purpose and our third tradition, which states that the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking, we ask that all who participate confine their discussion to their problems with alcohol. And the AA preamble: Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And I've asked two home group members to open up with how it works and the 12 traditions.
Hello, I'm Carol Roop and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is February 8th, 2020, and I'm a member of the Came to Believe group. This is my home group. How it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They're not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and that result was nil, until we let go, absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it's too much for us, but there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. And 12, Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear three pertinent ideas. A, that we are alcoholic and cannot manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought.
Hello everyone, my name's Rhonda Reed and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety birthday is May 15th, 2008, and I am a member of this home group. The AA tradition. To those now in its fold, Alcoholics Anonymous has made the difference between misery and sobriety, and often the difference between life and death. AA can, of course, mean just as much to uncounted alcoholics not yet reached. Therefore, no society of men and women ever had a more urgent need for continuous effectiveness and permanent unity. We alcoholics see that we must work together and hang together, else most of us will finally die alone. The 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous are, we AAs believe, the best answers that our experience has yet given to those ever urgent questions. How can AA best function? And how can AA best stay whole and so survive? The 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous. 1. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2. For our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. 3. The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4. Each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5. Each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6. An AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9. AA, as such, ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10. Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues. Hence, the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. Thanks.
Thanks to Carol and Rhonda for reading. This is the Came to Believe group meeting schedule. We are one group that meets twice a week. On Tuesdays, we have closed meetings from 7 to 8 p.m. They're over in the choir room just across the way there. The first, second, and third Tuesday of each month is a big book study. We go all the way through the big book and then start over again. On the fourth Tuesday, we study the tradition that corresponds with the month. And when we have a fifth Tuesday, we have a history meeting. Fridays, we also have closed meetings from 7 to 8 in the choir room every Friday except for the last Friday of the month. Those meetings are closed discussion meetings using AA-approved literature. And the last Friday of the month, we have our open speaker meeting with fellowship at 6:30 and a speaker at 7. Closed meetings are for alcoholics or anyone having a desire to stop drinking. Open meetings are for anyone desiring to attend. This is an open meeting, and we are glad you are all here. And I will at this time call on Paige Wood to introduce our speaker.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Paige Wood. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety birth date is March 31st, 1989. And there's several of you that owe me a great debt tonight. We were going to have a call-up meeting up to about 2 minutes ago, and I've already picked the people. So I might have to postpone it for another meeting, and you people will be on my call-up. So anyway, we're in for a treat. We'd have been in for a treat anyway. There's a lot of sober people here tonight, and I am certainly grateful for that. People that are actually here when I got here and helped me all this time. So anyway, we've got a great speaker tonight. Came through great adversity, through the traffic, coming from Southern Pines, through Eastern North Carolina, through our highway systems of, what it is. And so did many of our guests tonight, make almost that same trip to be here tonight. What a big deal we owe to our Savior and to AA that we're able to do that, and that represented tonight is so many men and women who gave their lives over to Alcoholics Anonymous and are still here helping to help someone else. The man tonight we have is one of those men. He came from his hometown today. We invited him several weeks ago. We're looking forward to hearing his entire story tonight. And so if you will, help me welcome a great member of Alcoholics Anonymous, Daniel.
Daniel Alcoholic. Hey, everybody. Thank you for Abe and Jake for coming with me. We were sitting on 87 there for probably over an hour, praying and cussing. But especially since the records were getting blocked by traffic, trying to pass other traffic. But anyway, we made it, and so it's good to be here. I told you who I was, right? I don't want to forget that. Sobriety date's August 1st, 1997. Home group's Primary Purpose Group in Southern Pines, North Carolina. And we meet on Mondays and Thursday nights at 7 o'clock. And so a good group of Alcoholics Anonymous, I feel. And I've been a part of that group ever since I got sober. I was the first newcomer in that group back in 1997, and still a member of that group. There's been a couple of times I wanted to change groups, but I never did. I don't know if anybody's ever had that feeling or not, but I've had that more than once over the last 20-something years. And it always, whatever it was that wanted me to change groups, has worked itself out. And so I'm glad to still be there. I have a sponsor. He's here tonight. I sponsor a couple of guys. One of them I hadn't seen in quite a while. But, you know how that is, but, I never knew that car could go that fast, but I do now. That old car run 92 miles an hour and just hung. She's almost out of gas now, though. It rode in on fumes. So, trust the power. I kept saying trust the power. His will be done, right? So I'm settling down right now. It's good to be here. So I'm supposed to tell you in a general way what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like today, and I'm gonna try to do that as best of my ability. I grew up in a rural area in North Carolina called Anderson Creek, and I was in Harnett County. I grew up wondering what life was all about. I never quite felt like I understood what life was about. I was taught certain things that were good things, I believe. I was taught what right and wrong was. I was raised by my father. He's still alive today. He's a hard-working, honest man. Still is today. And his grandfather was, his father and my grandfather was the same way. I come from a long line of alcoholism. There's a lot of alcoholism in my family, going pretty far back as far as I can, remember and see. And I've had a couple of family members die directly from alcoholism. I had, even on my mom's side, I had a cousin that died from alcoholism, and he, before he passed away, he let his other cousin know that he was going to go back and drink himself to death, and he let him know that he put aside enough money to bury him once he passed away, and that made sense to me. That's the kind of alcoholism that makes sense to me. You pay your own way. And so he set aside enough money to bury himself, and he drank himself to death. I was a kid that just didn't quite fit in. Never quite felt like I fit in. I always kind of felt like I was on the outside looking in. I wasn't really a part of. I wanted to be a part of. I never could quite feel comfortable when people would try to pull me into into what they were doing or whatever. I mean, a lot of people would attempt to try to pull me in, and I just never could quite get into the group. And so I struggled making friends. I struggled trying to, excel at life or whatever it was I was doing. And then one day something magical happened. I was 15 years old, and I never got enough alcohol in me to feel that magical effect. And I know right now, looking back on it now, if I'd have known what alcohol would have done for me, I would have drank a whole lot sooner than 15. I can promise you that, because I needed to drink at 5 years old. My first day of kindergarten was full of fear. I needed to drink then. But at 15 years old, I had my chance to drink for the first time. I was at a dinner. It was after church, and when some people having dinner, and it was customary in that church to have cocktails. And so they were sitting around having cocktails, the adults were. And another acquaintance, friend, whatever of mine, approached me and said, come here, I want to show you something. And so we walked into the kitchen, and where the washer and dryer was in the utility room there was just liquor bottles stacked up across the washer and dryer. And he was like, do you want to drink? And I'm like, yeah. So we went back into the kitchen, and I didn't know anything about drinking other than, you mix it with something. That's about all I knew. my father would keep like a half a pint of, he liked Jim Beam, so he'd keep like a half a pint around, and he'd make a drink every once in a while. And so that's about all I knew about it. And he drank beer too as well. And so we went back into the kitchen, and I went looking for a cup. And I opened up the cabinet, and I pulled a cup out, and it was a cup that had a moose on the front of it. And I think you got those cups from like, it was a souvenir cup from Hardee's. And the important thing was it held 32 ounces. And so I went back in there and just started putting liquor in it and mixing it. And I was pretty sure I was mixing the browns and the whites, and then threw some cola in there of some sort. Went back, sat down where I was before. I was kind of a people watcher. I was sitting just kind of watch people. And I wasn't really a part of it. I was just a watcher. Well, I sat down and started drinking that. And I don't know how to describe this any better than this, but have you ever been on a lake when there's a lot of boats on the lake? And it's so choppy. And it's, you know, boats going like this all the time. Well, that's what I felt like on the inside. And I began drinking that liquor. And have you ever been on that same lake in the middle of the night when there's no wind and no boats? It's smooth as glass. There's probably no smoother ride than to be on the water like that. And that's what alcohol did for me, is it smoothed the waters out. It just became like glass. And I was perfectly at ease in a matter of minutes after drinking. And it was just a magic from the very beginning. I fell in love with that feeling in the very beginning. I don't know if I became immediately an alcoholic, but I was addicted to that feeling immediately. And so I chased that feeling, that sense of ease and comfort that came from alcohol from the very beginning. And nothing very eventful happened that night other than I became a part of. I was a part of, I became like a natural leader when I drank. And it's just amazing the transformation that took place inside of me. It gave me confidence. It allowed me to no longer be concerned about being, insecure and unable to be able to think. Sometimes I couldn't think what words to say and stuff because I was so insecure about messing up in front of people and stuff. But when I drank, that stuff went away. It didn't even matter. But what was so cool about it was I didn't even really care if you liked me or not. And what a transformation. That's an absolute miracle, you know. I was such a different guy when I drank, just a different guy. And so just fell in love with that feeling. And I began just drinking on weekends, that kind of thing. Along that same time, suddenly I became really intelligent. For some reason, I was the smartest person in the world. And nobody could tell me anything. And I don't know why that was, but especially anybody that was older than me and had some authority or that kind of thing, they couldn't tell me anything. I remember getting in some trouble at home, and this was real trouble. And the kind of trouble that ended up getting me grounded for life. It was one of those kind of deals. And so I ended up getting grounded for life. And my parents didn't know this, but I had learned the bank card number. You know, you go up to the ATM. It was when the ATMs first came out around that area where I lived at. And so I borrowed the bank card. And I was grounded from my car. I was grounded from everything. And so I said, all right, I'll just move out. And I took the bank card and left in my car and went on a spending spree. I never had so many friends in my entire life. I would venture to say I probably have more friends now in Alcoholics Anonymous. But back then, that was as many friends as I ever had. Friends coming and going. I'll tell you one other neat deal. I walked into a meeting about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think it was, and I seen one of them guys I used to skip school with. He was in AA, been sober a year. And when I told him my name, he remembered me. And we calculated in our heads, it had been 32 years since we drank together. Isn't that amazing? It's taken that long to be in AA before I seen somebody I used to drink with. But anyway, so we're running around spending that money, and eventually I ran out of money and became homeless. And friends started disappearing. I couldn't understand that. But one guy let me sleep on his couch, so I did that. And I was sitting out in front of the bank because I was still kind of skipping school and stuff. So I was sitting out in front of the bank waiting for the school bus to come and drop the kids off. And I was sitting there for a little while, and all of a sudden, Publix pulls in behind us. And I'm like, I wonder what they want. And blocked me in. And come to find out, it's illegal to loiter in front of the bank for hours at a time. And next thing I know, he's pulling a gun out. He's telling me to show him his hands and, exit the vehicle and all that kind of thing. And I got arrested for an outstanding warrant. My parents took a warrant out on me. And so I got arrested, and it was not a nice officer. I've been arrested by some nice officers. He was not one. He hog-tied me and threw me in the back seat, and then we drove to the county jail. What seemed like 100-something miles an hour. So I was going from one side to the other side. And the whole time he's interrogating me about who's breaking into these trailers and who's burglarizing this place and all this. Well, anyway, I ended up going to the jail, and one of my aunts was one of the jailers. Oh man. So I ended up staying in jail a few days, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and finally they let me out. But before they did, they gave me my 2 pennies back. I had 2 pennies I walked in there with. They gave me those back. And when I was in front of, I didn't tell you why I was in front of that bank so long. I kept walking up to the ATM machine trying to see if there was more money in there. I guess I figured my parents would put some money in there for me, but they never did. And so I just kept doing that over and over again. And eventually, got arrested there. But anyhow, so I get out after a few days, and I have to go to court first. The first day I went to court, they shackled me to some guy, this great big dude. And I weighed about 130 pounds, and I was only 16. Shackled this huge dude. I remember walking into the courthouse, and y'all know those old courthouses that have the wooden floors? And so they walked us right down the middle of the aisle with the benches on both sides and the shackles just banging off that. And I remember just walking through there and ashamed, and there was my mom and dad sitting in the courtroom. And Dad was looking at me with this disgusted look on his face, and Mom was crying. So I sat there, and I remember I went to court and pled guilty. I remember that. I remember them saying, "Are you sure you want to plead guilty? You don't want an attorney?" I'm like, "No, I'm going to represent myself." So I pled guilty, and I remember when the judge sentenced me, my dad stood up in the courtroom. The judge sentenced me. My dad stood up and he said, "Can you give him any more time?" And the judge did not take too kindly to that. He said, "If you don't sit down, I'm going to give you some time." And Dad sat down. He just wanted me to learn my lessons, what it was. So I went into the jail. They let me out of jail, and I didn't have anywhere to go. And I walked out in the parking lot, and I remember seeing that old red Custom Deluxe pickup truck. I knew there couldn't have been more than one of those in Harney County. I knew it had to be Dad. So, and he met me in the parking lot with a pack of Marlboro 25s. That was one of the things he wasn't going to let me smoke. And I said, "Hand me a pack of cigarettes." And he said, "You want a job?" And I was like, "Yeah." "You want a place to stay?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so I was back, no longer homeless, I guess you'd say. But anyway. So anyway, I continued to drink and party. I mean, that entire 10 days or so where I spent on that money was nothing but just a party. And so I continued. Now I had a job, and I was able to buy alcohol on a regular basis. By the time I'm 18 or 19 years old, I'm a daily drinker. And when I'm in my early 20s, I move out in my early 20s, and that could have been a whole lot worse. Good save. So in my early 20s, I'm drinking every day, and I'm waking up sick every morning. Just absolutely sick. I can't even, the thought of drinking, it just makes me disgusted, the thought of drinking. And when I drank, it talks about it in our literature, this craving thing happens. This is the weirdest thing. When I begin to drink, it's like drinking would make me thirsty. And the thirst could never be quenched. And it's like the more I drank, the thirstier I got. And it had been that way for a long time. Even when I was like 17 or 18, I had that sense of craving that would happen. But at some point, I sort of crossed some sort of line where I lost control. And I don't know exactly what that looked like. I just know at some point that the thought of drinking, I just never could get it out of my head. It was like an obsession. It was like it consumed my thoughts, whether I was drinking or not. And there was I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but so I'm drinking and waking up sick, just head pounding, it's sort of like I know y'all felt that feeling if you've ever had a hangover like that. I've met one or two people in AA that told me they never had a hangover, and I'm like, why'd you stop drinking? And I think the reason why they never had a hangover is they never sobered up. But and so in the morning times I would just be so sick, and the thought of even drinking water or anything would just disgust me. The thought of it would make me sick to my stomach, and I would vibrate on the inside. You just feel like my whole insides are vibrating. And somehow I would go to work that way. And I would think in my head, I can't do this again today. There's no way I can do this again. But there's a part of the illness that I feel is more serious than the craving. Because the craving I can handle as long as I don't drink. But something would happen and my rational thought process would end. That morning, the thought of drinking was the furthest thing from my mind. But after a few hours, my body would recover and I'd start feeling a little better. And I'd be able to drink a little water or eat a few crackers or something. And all of a sudden, my brain would be like, you're feeling a lot better. Maybe you're overreacting. Maybe it's not that bad. Maybe you can do things a little different. And I would rationalize with myself. I don't think I drank enough water before I went to bed. That's why I was so sick and so thirsty. I just need to drink a big glass of water before I go to bed tonight. And I'm pretty sure I forgot to take a couple of aspirin. I need to take a couple of aspirin before I go to bed. That way my head probably won't be hurting in the morning. And I think I drank on an empty stomach. I need to eat more before I start drinking tonight. And by the time I would get off and work, I'd be so thirsty for a drink I could hardly stand it. That obsession absolutely consumed me. And I needed a drink to quit that. And when I would leave work, heading home, I'd already start feeling better. Hadn't even gotten a drink yet, but knowing I'm going to it, I'm starting to feel better already. And then when I get to it and take that drink, finally get to it, it's like, and then it's on again. And I drink till the time I go to bed. And it was like that every day. And then on the weekends, I would begin to drink as soon as I got up, whatever time that was. And my world just got smaller and smaller and smaller. I was so isolated. And so that's what my life looked like. Well, one day my wife goes out of town to visit family. I mean, way out of town. She went to Jacksonville, Florida, and left me with the car. And I remember taking the car and going to the local bar that I frequented and thinking to myself as I'm walking in there, this might not be too smart. But then again, rationalizing it, I'm just going to go in here and have 1 or 2 beers. I'm going to throw some darts, have a good time in here, and I'm going to go back. That's what I'm going to do. I've got this, right? Got to be a good boy. She's out of town. She's not able to drive me, so I got this. So I went into the bar about 5 or so, I guess, in the afternoon. I left the bar at 2:30 in the morning. And the only reason why I left is because the bar was closed. And I ended up getting a DWI on the way home. A guy offered me a ride, and I said, no, I got this. Got a DWI, went to jail, and called that same guy. He came pick me up at the jail. And took me home. But when she got back from the deal where she was at, I had to tell her what had happened. Picked her up at the Amtrak station early in the morning, I think it was. It was either 11:30 or 2:30. I don't remember which one it was. But my mom was driving, and she knew something was wrong if mom was driving. And so I had to tell her I got a DWI, and she looked at me with tears in her eyes, and she was like, why? You know, I'd always had excuses, you know, but this is one of them points where it's like I don't know if it's a moment of clarity or a turning point in my thinking process, but she asked me why, and I told her I was totally baffled, because what I knew is I went into that bar and I was going to control my drinking. And it was as if, it was almost like the alcoholism said, I'll show you who's in control. It was almost like that, because it was there was just, I couldn't, it was like trying to exert control meant there was going to be less control. It was totally out of control. And if I'd have gone in there probably and just been like, you know, I'm just going to go in here and drink, you know, I might not have done as bad. I don't know, but I just know I lacked control, total control. And so I was baffled. I told her, I just don't know why. I don't know. You don't know. And so it was the only time I got honest about it. I just was baffled. It was another time I walked in front of a mirror, and I had a drink in my hand. And I walked in front of the mirror in the hallway, and I saw myself in the mirror, and I turned and looked at myself, and the look just kind of scared me. It just didn't seem like me. It was like, and I saw the drink in my hand, and I was like, what are you doing, you know? And just kind of just shook it off, you know, and went on to drinking, you know. And I had, you know, things like that happen. I had a bad drunk on NyQuil. Anybody ever drink NyQuil to get drunk? Man, I was a bad drunk. I remember drinking like 2 bottles of that stuff, like the big bottles. I couldn't even get through the second bottle. I started hallucinating. And my wife was like, her heart was like, you going like this. And she thought I was going to die, you know. So I don't recommend, you know, relapsing on NyQuil. But yeah, I was sick. But when you're sick, the cold comes out. So anyway, so fast forwarding a little bit, that DWI puts me in an outpatient treatment program, or an assessment, if anybody's ever had an assessment for DWI. So I go to that assessment, and I'm sitting there, and they give you these questions. And the best I can recall, it's like, the question would be something like, how often do you drink? Every day? You know, once a week? Once a month? Less than once a month? Or every 6 months, or never? It was like that, you know. And I couldn't put never because I was in there for a DWI. So I put every 6 months. And I just answered every question like that. If the question said, do you have any problems with work on account of your drinking? Nope. I've been fired multiple times. I got fired and hired in the same day. That kind of thing can happen to you when you work for your father. So anyway, I just answered every question like that. There was only one question I answered honestly because I didn't understand it. It said, "Did you ever have an eye opener?" And I'm like, "What the heck's an eye opener?" I'm like, "That's got to be bad, though." No. And so I pushed the test back across, and then the guy looks at the test right quick, and he's like, "When I look at this, it tells me you don't have a problem with alcohol." And I'm thinking to myself, "Yes, I got this guy fooled." And he says, "However, when I look at your driving record and your criminal record, it says otherwise." And he said, "I'm going to recommend that you go to our first 10 classes, but also to our advanced classes, more intense outpatient classes as well." And I'm grateful he done that because when we got into the more intense classes, went to a much smaller group. There was only 3 of us then. And we actually opened up the big book and started reading it. And I had been to AA before to get a paper signed, but I'd never seen the inside of the big book. I never was a part of AA. I was like thinking to myself, you know, I'm not ready yet. I probably can do this on my own. You know, and I'd have thoughts in my head like, I think I can probably get to at least 29. You know, drink until I'm 29. I probably can survive that. And then maybe I'll need AA. You know, thoughts like that. Always, you know, the plan, you know. It's sort of like my ex-wife now, but she's got an uncle, and they were cleaning out stuff in his house, and he's gone blind due to drinking. That's how bad he is. And they were cleaning stuff out in his house, and they found a big book. And his wife is like, "Hey, I guess you don't need this big book since you quit AA, so I'm going to give it to you know, my ex-wife, and because Daniel can use it." You know what he said? He said, "No, hang on to that. I might need it one day." Alcoholism on her side of the family, too. When they were cleaning out, my grandmother had passed away. When they were cleaning out all her stuff and they were, you know, dividing stuff up against the family and stuff, they found an Al-Anon book in my grandmother's personals. Nobody knew she had gone to Al-Anon. My uncle was a bad alcoholic. My grandfather was an alcoholic. Of course, I was. I've stood in my grandmother's kitchen bleeding on the floor from a car accident, and I was in a blackout. She had to call 911. She actually didn't make that call because I kept telling her to call 919. She ended up calling my uncle, and my uncle called 911. Anyway, so I'm sitting in that treatment program, and we're going through the big book, and we started reading kind of some of the stuff I was talking about, that allergy, that craving, that sense of ease and comfort that comes from a few drinks. All that stuff was clicking in my head and making sense. And then I started talking about how the problems pile up on the alcoholic and become astonishingly difficult to solve. All this stuff was just, you know, resonating with me. But I wasn't ready to stop drinking. I was still drinking. Then after a few classes, the counselor says to me, he says, "Are you still drinking?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "No, I know you're not drinking right now." He's like, you're drinking between these classes." And I'm like, "Well, yeah." Because I thought, you know, it's my time. I come in here and give you $50 every Thursday, and these other 6 days are my days. Well, 2 days went to Moore County because I had to do jail time, but, you know, I had to drink, you know, because I had to detox every day. And he's like, "No, you need to stop or else I can activate your probation." That's serious. So I had like 2 years probation. So I ended up going through the class that day, and after the class, he said, "So what's it going to be?" And I said, "Well, I'll try." And the next day was August 1st of '97, and I got up and made a conscious decision: I'm not going to drink today. And so I call that my sobriety date, since I was sober on that Thursday too, but it wasn't by choice. And so I call that first, you know, August 1st. Plus it's a whole lot easier to remember too. Then went into the Moore County Jail, that day, detoxed in the jail like I had every time before. This time was a little different though. I used to sit there and look out the window and look at the beer store. And my mouth was watering. As soon as I'd get out, I'd head straight for that beer store, get me a 22 Heineken, started drinking beer on the way home, and then do serious drinking once I got home because I had time to make up. Yeah, but this time it was different. I was in there trying to stay sober, and I had a big book, or a guy in there had a big book. Anyway, we had a big book. And he was in there for DWIs too, but he was doing all his in a row. And so we actually started going through the big book, reading it. And we were studying it, talking about how we wanted to stay sober and stuff. I don't know whatever happened to that guy. But I stayed sober. I hadn't had a drink since. Went to an AA meeting, picked up a white chip. There was a guy sitting in there, and I was as lost as I'd ever been. He was sitting in a room, and there was a circle of chairs, same group I'm a member of now. Many of you know this guy, but he was sitting in there, and he had his arms just kind of spread out like he owned the place. And I walked in there, and I remember him motioning for me to come sit down. And I walked over there where he was at. It's just him and I. And I went over there and sat down, and he patted the chair next to where he was at, and he said, "Sit down right here." He said, "I've been saving this chair for you for years." And what do you say to that? I just sat down, and I was like, and I've been home ever since. I mean, that's the way my home group is. Been home ever since. And became a part of that group the very first night because we were doing stuff together. We were putting the chairs up, and stayed with him, learned how to clean the coffee pot. He showed me how to make coffee. That took a while before they trusted me to make coffee. But he showed me how to clean the coffee pot. He's like, "Don't put soap in there." And he used to call me Big D. He used to call everybody that started with a D, their name was Big D. And there was another guy in there named Danny. He was a whole lot bigger than me. He called him Big D too. Anyway, so I just became a part of Alcoholics Anonymous that fast. It was nothing earth-shattering that had to take place. I did have one time step back just a little bit, is after I got out of jail that night, I got some pretty bad news from my wife. She had been assaulted and kidnapped while I was in the jail. And it was a pretty tough deal for both of us, to say the least. And that coupled with detoxing and everything going on, is just it took the fight out of me. It just absolutely took the fight out. And I was in my apartment, and I fell to my knees because I couldn't stand up anymore. And I mean, what do you do when you're on your knees and you can't stand up? I mean, it was a real dark place. I mean, the book talks about it. I think it's in Bill's story where he talks about quicksand stretched out all around it. It was like everywhere I looked was doom. You know, there was just no way to turn. And I think that's like a definition of the bottle. You know, it's sort of like the fear of the known is greater than the fear of the unknown. It's like where I'm at is worse than any other possibility. You know? And it's like, and so I'm in that place in total darkness and just pray a simple prayer, "God help me." And nothing miraculous happened as far as I'm concerned, other than there was just a faint glimmer of hope. You know, it's almost like a candlelight in a dark cave. You know, it's kind of what it felt like. And after a while, I was able to get to my feet. And was able to walk in Alcoholics Anonymous desperate, absolutely desperate. So when that guy welcomed me in, I was absolutely desperate. I was just like, you know, he talks about with a ship going down, and we're in life rafts. And some of us are out there drowning, and somebody reaches out and pulls us into the life raft. We got no choice but to join. And that's where I was at. No choice but to join and be a part of it. There was no more fight. And I'm very grateful for that now. Wasn't then, but I am now. And so I came in just ready to learn and be a part of, and just try to gain some sanity. Because they didn't understand that the insanity in the second step is my brain going back to a drink when it's the worst possible thing. And that irrational thought becoming rational again. You know, that thought process. And not even have to be drunk to have that thought process enter my brain where a drink's a good idea again. And I've left the AA meeting before and thought about drinking on the way home with more than 10 years of sobriety. I didn't pick up that drink, but the next thought was, that's crazy. You know, and pray a simple prayer. But I've been in so much pain that the thought of checking out has happened with long-term sobriety, and doing the deal every single you know, meeting, not missing meetings, sponsoring, talking to my sponsor, all that stuff still happening, just as strong and steady as I can go, and still have those thoughts come in because I'm going through something in my life. You know, in my situation, it's been going through a divorce. It's the worst thing I've gone through in sobriety. I really feel for guys and gals that come in that are going through something like that at the time they're trying to get sober. And maybe that's the best time to go through something like that. I don't know. But that has got to be tough. Because with, you know, going through that with 20 years of sobriety is about more than I can take. But what it's taught me is, you know, I feel like I probably get through about anything and stay sober. I get through about anything. So life is good today. We finally got back into the prisons. That's something I like to do, is go into the prisons. Done that for a long time. And then they got COVID back in there a few weeks ago. And so we're on, they call it yellow. We're still on yellow. I don't know exactly what that means, but it means we're not going in. I know that. I guess it's better than red, I'm gonna guess. That it must be something like green, yellow, red, maybe. Don't get too technical, but anyway, so hopefully we'll get back in next week. I'll say one thing about the unit we're in, just in case you know somebody. I mean, we've got some good Spanish-speaking nucleus of guys in there. They come to our meeting every single week, and some of them can't even speak English, but they're every single week. And so that tells me that if they had a Spanish meeting there, there would be a strong nucleus of guys that would, you know, pick that deal up and do it. So they come to the meeting every week. They were given permission to have their own meeting in the back room one time. And I came to one of the guys that's kind of the leader of that group. He speaks really well English, and I'm talking to him. And I'm like, you know, they can give you that room back there if y'all want to have your own meeting and speak in Spanish back there. He's like, no, we want to be in here with you. I was like, all right. That's fine. It's totally up to you. But yeah, so we've been doing that now for a few weeks. So it's good to be back in there. Those guys are grateful for us to be able to come back in. I like going to detox. Went into detox, and there was a person in there that's been in there over and over and over again over the last few months. Guess what? Saw them at the meeting this week. Been sober now about 20 days. I was afraid they might have passed on. They were in such bad shape. They disappeared for a long time. Come to find out they were in treatment. And sober today. Then there last night, a guy came in there that was that I saw in there. I don't know if what I'm doing there is making any difference or not. It could be the other people going in there 6 nights a week or whatever. But there he is sitting in the meeting. What a powerful statement that is. So grateful to be able to do those things. I've been able to start repairing my relationship with my daughter to some extent. I don't know how to describe it any better than this, but we were kind of like that, you know? And now we're probably like this, right? And some days we're like that, maybe, you know? But, I mean, it's light years of where we were, you know, 6 months ago, 9 months ago. It's not even in the same ballpark. And so, I know you go through a divorce, that kind of thing. I know that's probably going to, you know, there's got to be some resentment with the children. It's got to be. Somebody's got to take the blame. And I'm fine with that. So that's a neat deal. Another thing that's neat in my life is I like my job. I like where I work. I have a lot of freedom there. I was talking to somebody today about, you know, one of the things I like most about where I work at is I can do stuff like this. It doesn't matter if I need 2 hours off or I need to drive across the state to go to some other AA group or something. That's not a problem. Anytime I need to do something, it's available. I told my boss one day, I said, I want to do the Zoom meeting at the jail, and that's during work hours. And she's like, no problem at all. She's like, in fact, that should be volunteer time. You know, she's going to give me time off for free to do that. Haven't needed it yet, but if I need that volunteer time, I will take it. I will do that Zoom. I promise you that. But, so, just blessed like that, stuff like that. I work at a place that emails go out every day for prayer requests. If anybody in here wants a prayer request, I can hook you up. I promise you that. The emails are flying around all day long. I'm like, I ain't got time to see that. I'm trying to work. The email will come out and it'll be like, please play for such and such, such and such. And it'll be like 35 emails coming back. Reply all. Bam, bam, bam. I'm praying. Bam, bam. I'm praying. But that's the kind of place I work at. It's a little bit different, but I fit in there, sort of. But the neat thing is I fit in there and don't have to drink. I fit in pretty much anywhere where I go now. At least I feel like I do. And now it doesn't really matter. Used to matter a lot. Used to have so much fear. But I still do some. But it's nothing like what it was. I don't even know how to describe the difference. You can't even describe it. I'm not the same guy. I'm changed. And I believe the same guy would drink again. Gotta change. And I also am a believer that I've got to either be going forward or backwards. I don't think I can sit in one spot. And it's either slipping back or going forward. It's been me is that I've learned to walk through fear, to come out on the other side of it and look back and say, I got through that. You know, it wasn't near as bad as I thought it was going to be. Or maybe it was even worse, like the divorce was way worse than I thought it would be. But you look back and it's like, got through that. I'm out of gas. More ways than one. Thanks for asking me. Appreciate y'all listening to me and waiting for us late arrivals. I think that's the first meeting I've ever been late to. I don't know that's a fact, but it may be. Thank you.